everyone. Wait a minute, I don't like that. Hello, everyone. You notice I'm a little late because I'm like running around like crazy trying to get things set up for Patron Hangout number 201. But I am here. So, hello, everybody who is in the chat room. I think I've welcomed everybody so far, unless I missed Caitlin. Did I miss you, Caitlin? I'm not sure. But anyway, I am here. So, and I'm hopefully less red than last week. I'm working on my cameras, which are still causing me trouble. So I'm not late. Wait a minute. I'm good. I'm good. I'm fashionable. No, I don't like being fashionable. I'm one of those people that arrives on time or early, but never late. I never been one for that. So yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I am still slightly red, but I have been out in the sun. So apparently when you get a little bit of a little sun or a little tan, it's very hard to deal with the light. So last week you all said I look like a ham. So hopefully I'll look a little better this week, but it's only so much I can do. It's like, forget it. Show must go on. So there you go. And so anyway, what's going on right now? All right, let's start. Oh, if you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe. That supports an educational channel. And also, please, if you'd like to be in the chat room, click the link below for Patreon and join. There are 2 live shows a week, the Hangout like today and the K show on the weekend. It's patron only so that my chat room stays to be wonderful with all these people that I've gotten to know, and they've gotten to know each other. So it's really nice. And once the shows are done, they do become public. So if you don't join Patreon, you won't miss any shows. But if you do want to be in the chat room or just want to support, please do that. Click the link below. Okay. Do I want to hire my own studio? No, I'm past all that. First of all, it costs a fortune. I don't make a fortune. This is an educational channel, believe me. If I were one of those people with 4 million subscribers, yeah, I could run a studio and I could have help. I could have editors. I could have all those people. Now, this is called the dining room table, my wall. and I have a green screen, which is right there, which is what I use during the case shows, so I can put all the different pictures up. But yeah, I'm good. I'm at a point in my life where I don't need the extra headache. So I'm good with this. Hire yourself a student makeup artist. Yeah. They would have to come to my house twice a week. No. And then I do other videos. No, it's just too much work. I do have a makeup artist. I do hire for when I have a documentary company come to my house to shoot. I do hire her. And what I do is she's in my town. So I just run over to her house. She has all her stuff set up, and I just sit in the chair. She puts my makeup on. I hand her $100, and then I drive home, and then the documentary people pay the $100. So then I look a little better. But and if I go, into a real studio, they will have makeup artists. But yeah, I'm not one of them. Barbizon, the modeling school. Oh my God. The sun-kissed look. Oh, thank you, Tina. I appreciate it. Yeah, call me that. Anyway, let's get to it. Just to start the shows, as you always ask, yes, there is a picture of Mac who's hiding there behind my laundry basket. And this is one of the things I'm doing now. I put the trail of, after I feed him the wet food on my hand, then I put a trail of food all the way to me. And then I push the food under his face so it gets used to my hand. And he's getting better at that, actually. He's getting more used to my hand. So yeah, he actually touched my arm and looked at me. So little progresses, and he does still stand on my lap and eat his food. So yeah, coming along. Mac the cat. This is my painting of the week. This is a troupial. This is a troupial bird from Venezuela. And the story behind that is this was the bird my sister and I bought my mother because my mother always had parakeets, and her parakeet died when I was a teenager. And we were tired of the parakeets. So we went to a fancy bird place, and we saw this crazy looking bird. And we're like, oh, that looks so cool. So we bought it and we brought it home and we put it in the cage. And my mother, about 5 o'clock in the morning, that thing started singing, and it was very loud. And we're like, oh my God, we're in trouble. My mother comes running out, what in the world? And she finds this crazy looking, beautiful bird, and she fell in love with it, luckily. And So that was her favorite bird of all times. And she did learn to cover the cage so it wouldn't wake up so early in the morning. So I do. I think it's a really pretty bird. It's like a Baltimore Oriole, but a Venezuelan version with very, very loud songs. So that's in memory of my mother and the bird. So that's the new one. Thank you for your kind comments. It is in pastel, in case you're wondering. I'm doing all pastels these days. So, and let's see, what else do I have to share? I want to share a comment that I just got in. Here we go. I was about to subscribe to this channel, but I'm so glad I saw these videos first. Gross. you know, I'm always amazed that people feel a need to insult me before they disappear, But that's the kind of stuff I get a lot. Just so you know, you aren't, if you don't get those kind of comments, you're lucky. Oh my God. But I've gotten used to them, so most of them make me laugh. Most of them, anyway. Now, the one other thing that was the best thing that happened to me this week, I got a summons for jury duty. And you know how much I love the concept of being on a jury. And they will never let me on a jury because I'm a criminal profiler. So as soon as I get in there and they ask me what my profession is, and I say criminal profiling, the defense attorney says, liked and excused, and I'm gone. So nobody in our family actually can be on a jury, quite frankly. My daughter's husband, he was called to jury duty in our county. It was a homicide case, I believe. And and they started asking if he knew any of he said, well, I do have my wife is in law enforcement, like in PG County. She's like a detective, like homicide. And they started naming some of the officers on the case, the detectives on the case. And they said, do you know this one? Yes. Do you know this one? Yes. Do you know this one? Yes. And then the defense attorney's like, bye-bye. He also went, he said he got thanked and excused twice because he worked with SWAT, because he was working with NASA and he worked with SWAT team and he ran the SWAT team. He got wiped out twice. I don't know. He just got his summons. I don't know what's going to happen to him. But I got my summons and I was so tired of getting it. And so one of the things they have on the form is if you're 70 years old, you may be permanently excused. But the problem was my case that I was supposed to be, it would be August. And I'm turning 70 on July 23rd. So I'm like, I can't click that one because I'm not 70 yet, but I will be 70 then. I'm like, they have no place for that. So I did type out a thing and I took a screenshot and I attached it. And then I got this in the mail. On my email. Excused permanent. Your request to be permanently excused from jury duty is granted. So free at last. I'm so excited. I never have to respond to another jury summons in my life. Turning 70 has some advantages. That might be one of them. Oh my God. So what is it was a Karen Reed trial. I put that series of things on jury issues on Karen Reed trial. That's what did it to her. Lord. Yeah. Yahoo. Yeah, you bet. So glad. It's over. It's over. Her mom too. Too old for jury duty. Yeah, it's great. I would be a reasonable jury, but that's exactly why they won't have me on there. The defense will never allow a reasonable juror if they can find them to be reasonable. And reasonable means usually can't be law enforcement, can't be profilers, can't be attorneys, can't be. So certain levels of professions, they don't ever want on there because they won't be probably that kind to their defendant. So yeah, it's very interesting how they pick out juries. And so the jury is not an anonymous bunch of people. It's a bunch of people that the defense has worked hard, and they have special people who actually help defense attorneys pick out, the best jury they can get. So it's really not as just open as people think it is. And it's like, oh, just 12 people, they're just there. No, it doesn't work like that. So if they just literally pick just 12 people, that would be interesting, but they don't. They pick a whole bunch of people and then they excuse a pile of them so that they get the jury that, the prosecution is trying to get their jury and the defense is trying to get their jury, but the defense has an advantage in that. So it's the way it is. So anyway, Well, it's a busy July. Everybody's 20. I'm 23rd. Your daughter's 24. Your dad is 25. Yeah, good month, I say. All of us are Leos, you know. Anyway, all right. So I also want to let you know about, I just did over on my other channel, if you want to subscribe to that channel and watch the videos, it's going real slow. It is. It's going real slow because the algorithm is not being nice to my channel. And that is my other channel, which is Dear Profiler Pat. And this one question was, what do I do if my profession clashes with my values? I just put that up. Just to let you know how YouTube works. I have been there for now for what, 5 months? And let me tell you how much I make a month. You want to hear? Maybe I should make you guess. So this is my new channel. What do you think I'm making per month on that channel? I'm doing 2 videos a week. What am I making? What would be your guess for that channel? Cauliflower is pretty close. Pretty close. If I were making 1,000 on that channel, I'd be thrilled. No, $10. A little closer, little closer. You're just paying them. Actually, you might not be joking, because by the time I put in all the work, they're making money off of me, but I'm not making money off of them. $1.75. 100? No, not even 100. No, the closest was $10. I make it. Last month I made $15. $15 for 8 videos, which takes, you know, reasonable amount of time, 8 to 10 hours of work, because I have to get the question, then I have to set it up, then I have to do it, then I have to put it together. So at least an hour and a half of a video to put it on there, and yeah, so $15. So each video, yeah, I think I'm making $2 a video. You would. Yeah, and you know, there's another woman out there she sits in her house. I'm not going to give you her name because I can't stand her channel, but she sits there and she looks all sad, and she's 60 years old and she looks 70, and she's just the most negative Nelly ever. And she's like, and you're going to find out when you're this age that this is going to happen to you. You're not going to have any friends, and you're not going to have any. You don't want to be around it. And she's just so negative. She's got like. Her videos are getting like 500,000 views. I'm like, what the hell? You know, but that's the algorithm, or maybe people like to commiserate and be depressed. I don't know. Oh, thank you very much, Christy. I don't want to stop doing it just because I enjoy it. I did move it from this channel to the other channel. On this channel, at least I made something per video that was tolerable. Over there, I'm making near nothing. So it's the algorithm issue, trying to get a new channel going, even if you have another channel, is very difficult. So you're over 50 videos are so sad. They are. I mean, I've never seen such negativity. I mean, I address some issues about age, but I don't address it in such a way that it's just like this woman's like, I have no friends. I just care about my dog. I'm only here for my dog, and I'm just making sure my dog is happy till it dies. I'm like, damn, you're only 60. What the hell? You know, so it's just funny. Oh, thank you very much. So I can get their $15. Yeah. Luckily, this channel isn't doing as badly, which is why I can continue. I've been here 4 years now on this channel. So, and I work full time on this channel. So it has to be a little bit better. I just put up this video, by the way. When you finish here, I don't know why it doesn't say it properly, but this is on the Brian Kohberger, the murder of Brian Kohberger. What is it? I just put a video up on that. So, all right, let's get on with it now. So some of the things I want to talk about. I think just because I want to mention it, I don't know why I wanted to mention it first, but let's go to our, she got found, she was convicted. Thank God that the jury didn't screw that up, because I would have been really pissed if they had. But they found her guilty. Thank the Lord for small favors. Let me find, and this is our mushroom poisoning lady. Let me find the article, because the article was just fascinating to me because of how long that trial went on. It's incredible. Okay, here we go. The verdict. Okay, mushroom murder trial. A jury finds Australian woman deliberately killed lunch guests with poisoned beef Wellington. And listen to this. A 12-member jury reached the verdict after around 6 days of deliberation. Now that concerns me right there. You know, I have a real hard time understanding that many days of deliberation, because that would mean to me that after all that, and by the way, it was a 10-week trial, those poor jurors, 10 weeks of their life. And I don't know what happens in Australia, but in the US, we get $30 a day. So you have to give up your life for 10 freaking weeks. And if you're sequestered, you're really screwed. But let's say you're not sequestered, you at least get to go home at night. But you're giving up 10 weeks of your life. And theoretically, if you're self-employed like myself, well, I probably could get away with that. I could do my videos at night, But if you're like self-employed and you cannot, you maybe can get out of jury duty if you can prove that if you go to jury duty, you can't make any money and you're going to starve to death. But if you work for a company, you're supposed to be excused and they have to keep paying you in spite of the fact you're not there. 10 weeks. Again, professional jury would be paid and that would be our job. But these poor jurors, 10 freaking weeks. I mean, that's unusual. That's an unusual punishment for people to spend 10 weeks or boring weeks in a I don't know. I can't even imagine sitting there for that long. Now, some people say, well, I watch all the trials at home. Well, that's because it's your thing and you're also in your comfort of your own home and you can stop it and you can start it again and you can skip things if you want to and you can make lunch, These people are stuck there. Anyway, they spent 10 years. I mean, 10 years. It felt like 10 years, but it was 10 weeks. Yeah. Okay. So, oh my God. So then they took six days to come to a verdict, which again bothers me because if you spent 10 weeks getting all the evidence, pretty much you should know what your verdict is in like 5 minutes after the trial ends or already earlier. Why do you need 6 days? What are you arguing back there? And if you have to argue with people, then the 12 people aren't agreeing. So who's not agreeing? And are you bullying them into agreement? Or I've just never understood the whole process. It drives me nuts. But anyway, thank God they found her guilty. Now, the other thing that was quite interesting was that when I did my show on her, I said, well, it's clear to me that she did not partake of the beef Wellington she made for the rest of the people because, if you put the poison mushrooms in the beef Wellington, you couldn't be sure that they didn't seep down to a certain end of it. You would not take that chance. And I said she had to have made 2 beef Wellingtons. One was she sliced up and put on the plates, and the other one, her slice, came on her own plate. It turned out, which I did not know at the time, that she made totally separate beef Wellingtons, like little ones. And so she had them all on different plates, but her plate was a different color. And somebody said, did you have a problem with her crockery? I mean, and that's how she knew she wasn't getting the poison one because it was on a different color plate. But she did actually make separate ones, not just 2. I thought 2, and she sliced them up, and then the one extra one she sliced for herself and gave some to her kids. But apparently she put them, it was done differently. She made separate ones. A lot of work, actually, Jesus. But anyway, she did do that, which I thought was interesting. But I knew it wasn't, she didn't make one beef Wellington and cut off a piece that didn't have poison in it. You couldn't trust that. So I knew she had to have at least 2 beef Wellingtons. So they found her guilty. But she needs to go to prison for a long, long time. She's in max security. Oh, and by the way, that's another story coming out of there. So supposedly she was working in the kitchen and one of the prisoners claimed that she poisoned them. And that all over the internet, tons and tons of stories about how she poisoned somebody because she worked in the kitchen. Now, first of all, I don't know if she has access to anything to poison anybody. And one person wouldn't get sick and nobody else. And she's got no reason to poison anybody while she's working in the kitchen. I mean, her purpose was with the family. That was her purpose. So she's, now that she's in prison, she's probably going to be a very upstanding prisoner, so she can, be liked and get along with the guards and, whatever else she wants. But she's probably not going to cause that kind of trouble. Now, would I put her in the kitchen? Probably not. I probably have her cleaning toilets or something, Yeah, don't piss her off. Yeah, but that could be true. Don't piss her off. But chances are. Oh, that's funny. Lane says, I made a joke about not assigning her to kitchen duty. Then I heard that. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a stupid thing to do just because, So she's like, look, I made you a lovely mushroom dish. That's still nice. it is creepy. I mean, I personally, I would have that same feeling. Look, here's your bowl of mushroom soup. And I'd be going, I'm thinking I'm skipping lunch today. So, but still, she's probably not going to poison anything while she's in prison. Probably not. But yes, I wouldn't have her in the kitchen. That just seems kind of silly. Caitlin says, I just catch trial recaps. I can't listen to the long ass trial like this. And I'm with you. And people, I get accused all the time because when I make a comment on a trial outcome or during a trial, certain things, and they're like, but you haven't watched the whole trial. No, because I have a life. And quite frankly, I have no time to spend 8 hours of my day. If I work full time for this channel, I can't also full time watch trials. Now, if I were doing nothing but trial videos, which some people do, like some of the attorneys, they'll watch the entire trial. And while they're watching it, they're taking notes. And when that day is finished, they do a 1 hour show on the whole trial day. I get that. But that's not my thing. I'm not an attorney. And I'm not going to spend 8 hours of my day watching a trial. So yes, I do the same thing. I get recaps. I check out information about what's been presented. And yes, sometimes I will have to say I wasn't in the court, so I cannot absolutely say certain things. But that's not. I'm not going to be doing that. Yeah. Wonder what her psychological issue is. Well, psychopathy. When I always say psychopathy when these things come up, because a psychopathy is a high level of narcissism, a lack of empathy. What kind of human being murders other people, especially people that have been kind to her? A psychopath. So it was revenge. Basically, it was a revenge thing. Essentially, but this is she didn't get out of her life what she wanted, and so she got her thrill out of doing this. And I'll say it again: power and control. And that's when you go see my Brian Koberger thing, you'll see the issues when he's talking about motives comes down to power and control. She lost some control when her husband left her. She lost power. She wanted it back, and she wanted it maybe even for a small period of time. And the fact she thought she might get away with it. There was a part about this doctor that said when she came to the hospital and he checked her out and said, might have some issue here. She said she left. He turned around. She had left. She went home to supposedly feed the dog, pack a bag before she came back. And he's like, what the heck? That's when he suspected that she was actually guilty of harming the other people. So that's interesting. Husband also changed his social media status to single. Bet that really set her up. Could be. Oh yes, this is very true. No, this came out quite about. Yeah, there was a previous attempt on his life. So she's I would say a psychopath. Yeah, I would indeed. I mean, you are what you are. Speaking of prison, here's Diddy, and Diddy's now he's in prison, and he got a standing ovation by the other prisoners. Sometimes when people end up in bad situations because of their own behavior, they still somehow have people on their side. There's a lot of people on Diddy's side. Let me find the thing about where is it? Diddy, where'd you go? Here we go. Sean Diddy Combs met with a standing ovation from his fellow inmates after court verdict. So he was greeted with a standing ovation by his fellow inmates upon returning to prison after receiving an acquittal for the most serious charge against him, according to one of his attorneys. On Wednesday, July 2nd, he was officially acquitted of sex trafficking and racketeering. Charges that could have led to life in prison had he been convicted. Now, he still is up for maybe 20 years in prison, and I think he may get a fair share of that. I'm not sure if he's going to get total 20, but I'm going to say they're going to try to slam him with at least 10. The rapper's lead attorney said the fellow inmates viewed the acquittal as a sign of hope. They all said, "We never get to see anyone who beats the government." So the thrill in this case is that the government charged him with racketeering, and they lost. I believe it was an overcharge, which is probably why they lost. But I mean, it thrills the inmates because, of course, they're all anti-government. But here I thought this was interesting. It says, so the lawyer goes on to describe his client's overall mental and emotional state, explaining that he typically speaks with Combs 4 or 5 times a day. Wow, that's a lot. Do you have another client maybe? How much is he paying you? He's doing okay. Adding that Combs, quote, realizes he has flaws like everyone else that he never worked on. Most of our flaws don't involve freak-offs, beating the crap out of our girlfriends, all the other things that you didn't actually get convicted of. Most of us don't have those flaws. So I'm going to say, he burns hot in all matters. I think what he has come to see is that he has these flaws, and there's no amount of fame and no amount of fortune that can erase them. You can't cover them up. Well, because when you're so egregious in your flaws, your flaws. It's called bad behavior. It's called breaking the law, but hey, let's call them flaws. So anyway, let's see what I'm curious to see what they will actually nail him with as far as a sentence goes. Is he being held at the same institution where Luigi, the alleged assassin, is being held? I don't know. Well, the Luigi fans are out there, and they're anti the health industry, health insurance industry, which can't really blame him on that. But Luigi is hardly actually a hero for that at all. I mean, Luigi's just like a few other people. So, yeah. So, that's a Diddy for you. Let's see. I want to talk about, since before anybody falls asleep, who's from the UK. This comes out here. This is Sir, I can't read his name here, Brian Levinson. He says that thousands of cases that would normally be heard in front of a jury should be decided by judges alone. And why does he say this? And this is an interesting point about the jury system, which I'm very vocal about. But I hadn't really thought about this issue, but it's a huge issue because even when you're trying to, like the jury summons I got, I mean, I don't know what case it was. They said most of the cases are 1 or 2 days. I'm like, so what little crap case do I have to go in and, all these people have to go in, lose a day of their work, go in. I don't even know if they get paid for that first day because all you're doing is going in and being selected. I think that's kind of a freebie. So I don't even think you get $30 for that. I think you just get screwed. And so all these people take a day off of work, can find daycare for the kids, go in and then get excused because only 12 people are ever going to be accepted. So there's a whole bunch of people who keep getting these summons over and over again because they're trying to have all these juries for very small crimes as well as the huge ones. And so we don't think about how often there's a jury trial for something that, quite frankly, probably should just be a bench trial. But because we have this thing, you have the right to a jury, and that comes from the UK as well. Let me see. Where is it? Hold on a second. Okay, here we go. But I thought it was interesting. Sir Brian Levinson was asked by the Lord Chancellor to come up with a series of proposals to reduce the backlog of cases in the criminal courts. There are almost 77,000 cases waiting for trial in the Crown Court in England and Wales, meaning some defendants and victims are waiting years for justice. Now, you're supposed to also be able to have a quick, things are supposed to turn around quickly. And I know cases that are outstanding here for 3 years, 4 years before they even hit the court. What the hell? It's supposed to be something that is, you get arrested and it goes forward. But of course, defense attorneys will try to delay everything. And so the victims of these cases and the families of victims have to wait years sometimes for the case to even show up in court. And the defense attorneys are doing everything they can to delay it because they make more money and it helps the defendant, because then you can have witnesses who die and, witnesses who forget, whatever. And so it's always to the defense's advantage to just delay it as long as they possibly can. Sometimes that leaves a person out on bail who is dangerous, because I should have not let him out on bail, but they did. And And then there's just these cases that they're just so overloaded. And what does that mean? 77,000 cases awaiting trial. After reviewing the state of criminal courts, Sir Brian suggested fundamental reforms to reduce the risk of total system collapse. But some barristers argued juries are essential for fair justice, and scrapping them is wrong. To fix what he calls a broken system, he has suggested having judge-only trials for certain cases like fraud and bribery. Another recommendation involves having more out-of-court resolutions, like cautions. He wants a new division of the Crown Court with 2 magistrates and a judge to handle less serious offenses. So we're talking about like three judges. In my opinion, similar thing could be done with professional jurors. You could have them always working, professional jurors. Once you become a professional juror in whatever region you're in, you go in and you work every single day. You go and you do this 2-a-day thing, and you do this 3-day thing, you do this. And all of these things might be reduced if you didn't have to get a freaking, you wouldn't have to get a lay jury, a civilian jury. Once you have to get the civilian jury, you've got to send out all the notices. You got to give them 3-4 weeks time to even respond to the actual day when they have to be there. Then they go in, and of course, then they get thanked, or they get accepted or thanked and excused. Then it has to keep going and going and going. All of this stuff. And then, of course, since you got a lay jury, the defense attorney is excited because he can play them, so the case becomes longer than it should in the court itself. If you had a professional jury, you wouldn't have to go through all that. They just show up. The defense is like, yep, professional jury. They present what they have to present. It'll be over half the time in the courtroom, and none of the preparation. So, and then people keep saying, oh, but too expensive to have professional jury. Really? Compared to all the rest of that mess? I don't know. So anyway, that's what he's hoping to reduce the backlog. Interesting. You never think about all those little crappy cases, which quite frankly probably are pretty easy to determine. And yet you have to get 12 people. Go in there and say, yeah, he's guilty. So, really, is that true? Chairs are uncomfortable? Oh, my God. Look how long it took for Koberger. And before he took the plea, I think his lawyers were trying to postpone it again. Oh, yeah, they would, for sure. What if that judge is biased or corrupt? This is the constant issue, that anybody who is professional is biased and corrupt. For the most part, for most of these cases, the judge does not know any of these people. All he wants to do is get them into the court and out of the court. He doesn't know who these people are. If you're going by the law, all you do is look at it and go, okay, did the guy commit the crime? Is there evidence? Yes or no? You don't know that person. And again, civilian juries can be bribed. They can be corrupted. Can be messed up. The Karen Reed case is absolutely an example of that. You can't, just because they come in and say, I don't know anything about the case and I'm not biased, doesn't mean that that's true. They can come in there with a specific purpose of throwing the case, and you can't prove it. All you need is one juror. So there's corruption in civilian juries. I think there would be less corruption in a professional jury, simply because they'd be doing case after case. And it's like when I talk about cases on this channel, I'm not invested in any of the cases. I don't know the people. I have no reason. I'm not part. I just have no reason to be. Whether it goes one way or the other doesn't matter to me personally. So I'm just looking at the evidence and coming up with a conclusion. That's it. It's a professional job. So yeah, it's not. There could be better ways. I mean, there are many countries that use bench trials. And not every country uses a jury trial. And the jury trials, they never have done any good research, because we're so invested in the concept of that we have to have this civilian jury system. Nobody wants to do the research to say, does it really work? And we're seeing more and more evidence that it doesn't work these days, because of television, because of the internet, because of the complicated DNA issues and all that stuff. It's getting less and less successful. So I just thought that was interesting. Oh, and there was an interesting question somebody asked me. Let's see. I thought this was a good question. There is a high-profile case in the U.S. Where one juror, when interviewed by the Daily Mail shortly after the verdict, revealed he is a victim of childhood sexual abuse, but didn't disclose it during jury selection. He claimed he, quote, flew through the form, didn't read it properly. He even used his experience to persuade other jurors during deliberation who had doubts about the victim's memories. The defense tried to challenge a verdict for jury misconduct, but the conviction was upheld. And I think there's a problem there. because if the whole thing is about sexual abuse, the question is, should people who've been sexually abused be in or out? That's a good question. Now, this person said, Luca Osborne Crowley, the author of Lasting Harm, I don't know what that is, but okay, I think it's a book or something, discusses how survivors are often wrongly assumed to be too emotionally affected to be impartial or involved fairly in a legal process. This is a problem. Usually you don't want people who have had certain experiences because they are emotional. Again, because they're lay jurors, and this is something that's not their normal profession. I don't get overly emotional about things. I see people watching these trials and they're like bent out of shape about people they don't even freaking know. I mean, they're just obsessed with things and just they're just gone crazy about it. It's like, oh, that poor dear. Like, what's your problem? You don't know them. Okay, so we do have that problem, or because they have had some experience, they bring that into the trial, and that's why you try to keep those people out. Not because you don't, understand what they might have gone through and feel sorry about that, but maybe they're not a person that should be in that trial. A person who's been raped, and they go into a trial that there's a rapist. Are they going to be able to look at the evidence and not want to just nail that guy to the wall? I can't really blame them. I understand. But can they be totally unbiased? It's questionable. But then she says, she highlights that excluding or doubting survivors in roles like jury service can further isolate them and deepen their trauma. So in other words, if we don't let you be on a jury because you're a survivor of sexual abuse, then that'll traumatize you. I don't know. I'd be thrilled. I don't have to go do jury duty and have to go through more trauma in the courtroom, but I don't quite get that. Then she says, stresses that a person's experience of abuse doesn't automatically prevent them from being fair or making just decisions. I don't agree with that. I think it is problematic. I think any emotion in the courtroom is problematic, period. And I think that, that's why we need a professional jury system. So interesting. That's supposedly what voir dire is for, but again, it depends. It depends. Yeah, it depends. Who? Yeah, you get so many chances to chuck people, and yes, that's what voir dire is for. But that's why that's the pain in the ass about the whole thing, that we have to go through the voir dire, and you get to ask these questions to decide when you're throwing people out. It's just a mess, is what it is. And that is true. That is true. So we may have an AI jury. Maybe AI would do a better job and be free. That's true. So there you go. Let's see. Okay, I want to talk about. I was asked about this missing person, and let me just mention him just for a second. So we have Travis Decker. The manhunt is still out for Travis Decker, the one who killed his 3 little girls, and he's supposedly. It says they're looking for him now in the Idaho Sawtooth National Forest. All right. They're actively seeking public assistance in locating him. All right. Which is interesting because do you want to be near this guy who just killed his 3 little girls? I would say not. Because also, if you've already killed 3 little girls and you happen to have a vehicle for anything useful to him, you may be more useful dead so he can grab your stuff. So he's extremely dangerous. So that they should warn people about. But then it's a very interesting statement here. The search intensified after a tip was received on July 5th from a family recreating in Bear Creek area of Sawtooth National Forest. The tip described a man matching Decker's description, a white male, 5'8" to 5'10", wearing a black mesh cap, black earrings, a cream-colored T-shirt, black shorts with a long ponytail, an overgrown beard and mustache, a black Garmin-style watch, a black JanSport backpack, and either Converse or Van low-top shoes. And it's like, how close to this dude were you? Anyway, they're still looking for him. And I thought the conversation actually was kind of more interesting than the actual story, which is basically we think he might be there, but whatever. So that's this person said someone got close enough to see what kind of wristwatch he was wearing. And then there's a whole bunch of just Tips, this person says, tips are coming in for a chance to cash in. People are calling in whatever just in case. Well, that's one of the problems police deal with is massive amount of tips because everybody looks like this guy now. But of course, you do want the tips if they really did see him. So that's a problem. He said he's working campsites for food left out at night, anything he could use. Theoretically, that could be true. Travis Decker's been spotted more times than Bigfoot this summer. And somehow the U.S. Marshals haven't caught him. So it's a lot of just very amusing statements here. But then somebody said this, and I think this is a good point. I think he is dead, and that's why he's so hard to locate. And here I thought that was a great answer because, yes, he may still be out there. But one of the problems you have with fugitives like that, where he knows if he's caught, he's going to prison forever or get the death penalty, maybe not in his state. Can't remember. But I mean, pretty awful. And unlike females who they will say have postpartum depression and he'll, maybe get off for killing three little children like Lindsay Clancy, it'd probably be going for the postpartum depression thing. You have a guy here and he can't use that. So he just looks like a really bad guy. Killed off his little girls. It's just because he wanted to and maybe get back at his wife or because he couldn't have them or whatever. But if he's gone off into somewhere into the deep mountains and just decided the hell with it, shoots himself in some ditch, gully, wherever, way up in the middle of nowhere, until a hiker rolls through there or a dog walker walks through there, they may not find his body for 5 years. And meanwhile, the amount of manpower and amount of money it's costing for them to search for this guy that may already be dead is astronomical. But on the other hand, you don't know he's dead, so you kind of have to look for him. So it's a mess, and that's where a whole lot of money and effort is spent. And of course, a lot of people live in fear because they're like, "Where's his? If I camp out here, will Travis Decker show up and kill me?" So what a mess, an absolute mess. The recent sighting was found. It wasn't him. They found the guy. The family saw it wasn't him. So, and the problem with a lot of these sighting things, I say it all the time. A lot of people look like a lot of other people. And, for me, I have face blindness, so I can't tell anybody apart, quite frankly. But there's just a lot of people who look similar and wear similar style clothing. So it's very easy to misthink, oh, that's the person when it isn't the person. So thank you for telling me that. Elaine says, there have been a number of people on the FBI's most wanted list, including a family annihilator, who are believed to have escaped into the mountains. Well, the mountains, it depends how good you are. I mean, it's unless you're a real good survivalist, it's really hard to survive in the mountains. It's not easy. You may be able to pull it off for a period of time, but how long can you keep going? How good are you at that? Keeping out of sight and having enough to eat and drink and not freeze to death. But some of those people are simply probably dead. They escaped into the mountains, but then they either starved to death out there or whatever and passed away and just haven't been found. When you look at searches and you realize how huge a search area is, I mean, it's not fun. I mean, I've done a couple searches and because I was looking for a specific person a couple times, and I mean, I got to the location, I'm like, crap, it's like, what are the chances? I'm gonna find the person, and that's why most of the time you don't. And that's why it's a hiker or a dog walker, something. Where, in other words, over time, maybe enough people crisscross the area that one of them just runs into the body or whatever. So, so it's it's tricky. The other case I want to talk about, which is somebody's gone missing in the wild, is a girl that where are you? Where'd the girl go? Here she is. Okay, this is Chelsea Grimm. So they haven't found her. She's been missing for a year. And here it says, they're searching for her. Now, interesting. It's an interesting case because it has a lot. It's a fascinating case. I mean, I wouldn't actually mind working on it if I had inside information on this, because there's two possibilities of what happened to her. Actually, there's three, but I'll go into the three. Hold on a second. Let me find their case. Okay. They have I want to first tell you what the family says. Renewed search. Okay. 1 year ago, let's see, the mysterious disappearance of a San Diego woman in northern Arizona woods 1 year ago prompted her parents to come back with their private investigator to try and uncover new clues. Kelsey Grimm's family said they have eliminated certain tips, but they're now back to square one and pleading for help from the public. It's like a bad movie, but it's reality, says her father. This isn't how the Grimm family pictured their lives 1 year later. On September 2023, Chelsea decided to drive across the country from San Diego to their home in Connecticut. And she was going to a wedding, and a wedding there of somebody that she knew, and then she was going to see her parents. So she was driving from Arizona all the way to the other side. Now, one of the reasons people say, well, why the hell didn't she just fly? Why is she driving all the way across the United States? And the reason she was driving across the United States kind of made me laugh, because she was driving across the United States because she had a bearded dragon, and she couldn't take the bearded dragon on the airplane. But I don't know that that's not true. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if you can't carry a bearded dragon on an airplane. I think if you can put it in a little box and put it under a seat like a dog or a cat, I would think you can take a bearded dragon on an airplane. I'm not sure. I do know that I once did take a bus across the country. And so at that time, I don't know that I could have taken my iguana and my tokay gecko on the plane. So I took the bus. So I can't say I'm totally against what you did. I took the bus all the way across, United States I smuggled them aboard the bus. So she was driving with her tokay gecko, and she went missing with her tokay gecko, the tokay gecko. People said, well, did they find the tokay gecko? Well, if the tokay gecko wasn't in her car when her car was found, I'm pretty sure the tokay gecko is in a tree now. I mean, it's been a year. They're not going to find the tokay gecko just walking around. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, look, the tokay gecko. But that's why she supposedly was cross-country going across with her bearded dragon. Not the tokay gecko, bearded dragon, sorry. Okay, so anyway, she had a bearded dragon. So anyway, she told the parents she wouldn't have cell service for a couple of days, which I thought was kind of weird. Because I don't know how you would know you wouldn't have cell service. Now, sometimes in certain areas you don't, but how would you actually know that before you were there? A couple days after that, I was like, this isn't right, because normally I would text to her every day. We know that on September 28th, Chelsea talked to a police officer in Williams near her campsite. Okay, so she talked to this police officer, and she was crying. And the officer asked her if she was okay. And she said, yeah, I was just doing a photo shoot of the lost soldiers and got a little emotional, so I was crying before I got back on the road. And she thought I like to do photography. I think that's a little weird right there. I'm like, that was red flag to me. It's like, okay, so there's a lot of places in the country where you might take a picture of something saddish in history, but do you end up in your car crying over something that happened in history a long time ago that you weren't part of? It didn't sound like I didn't buy the story. And then it said, watching the video, they asked the parents, does this seem like the Chelsea you knew? Oh, no. She sounded remarkably composed, and nothing in that camera footage alarmed me, said her mom. And right here, I'm thinking to myself, is the mom downplaying everything? She said that, okay, so her car was found abandoned the next day with flat tires and a lot of her personal belongings inside. The thing that concerned me, said her mom, was that her camera was in the car. Her camera was part of her personality and an extension of who she was. And I would think if she were leaving the car, she would take her camera. I can see your point there. Okay, so they searched with dogs, 3-mile radius, but didn't pick up on a scent or any remains. So they did, which is interesting. And this is part I'm not quite sure I understand. There were no footprints going away from the car when they found it. We have no evidence she got a ride out. So how did she get out of there? How does someone disappear into thin air? And so they also said that her parents hired the private investigator who gained access to all of Chelsea's cell phone and digital data, which abruptly ended in the woods where she was camping. That was the last point we have any type of cell phone information. That's where she was camping, not where the car was found. So when she said there wasn't going to be a cell phone for 2 days, did she turn that off? Now, here's where I think parents, it's very difficult when you're dealing with parents because they downplay things. I don't know how often I've seen parents say, there's nothing wrong with my kid. They wouldn't disappear. They wouldn't do this. They wouldn't do that. And then they say this: Chelsea had recently gone through a breakup and was having a hard time coping. Okay. So now we have something. We have a person. People go through breakups and it's sad and depressing, but when they disappear right after they're having a hard time coping, you wonder what more the issues are. All right. So it turns out, so her car is there. It's got two tires on the right side of the car. They're flat. They claim that they weren't slashed and they weren't purposely deflated. So did she take it over? Did she not put air in her tires? It was kind of a beat up car. Did she then it finally just crapped out on her? And I know that's a very strange comment. All her stuff's in the car except for her and the bearded dragon. So now what I find interesting is when you go to Reddit, we have a lot of people who talk about Chelsea. And it says here, people said, let's see. She canceled a lunch date with a friend. Later that day, she was reported to be disoriented when she tried to book a motel, which is near Williams. We were told by one individual she seemed confused when she was there. She was trying to exchange euros as opposed to U.S. currency. Also, the officer asked if she had used marijuana. She admitted to smoking it hours before, although they didn't think she was disoriented, so they let her drive on, but they warned her to update her car registration. It was about to expire. A woodcutter saw her car on a dirt road and stopped to talk to her, and he talked to her around noon, and she said she was fine, didn't need any help, and then when she was out taking photographs. Now, a lot of people suspect the woodcutter did something to her because he was maybe the last person who saw her, so reasonable to think that. However, that road was used by hunters and woodcutters. And somebody asked if anybody found the bearded dragon. Of course not, because it's not in the vehicle. All right. Now it goes on here, and it says here, she's a friend of mine. I have thoughts that her fiance, the guy that apparently she broke up with, or he broke up with her, is a legit scumbag. And then she said she had bipolar disorder and some other mental health issues. And then somebody else said, I'm a friend of Chelsea's. She displayed a myriad of concerning behaviors in the days leading up to her departure from San Francisco. She'd recently been poring through the Bible, which was unlike her, and became suddenly enthralled by it. Seemed like to me a sign of mania. She was confused and disoriented in Arizona. So there's a whole bunch of people. A neighbor of hers said she started hanging out with some sketchy people, like meth heads. So there's a lot of people on here who are claiming, and I say claiming because I don't know this is true, that she had mental health problems, quite a bit of mental health problems. And this is why when her mother said, oh, she just was the coping issue. I'm wondering what coping are we talking about? And then somebody goes missing right after this person has coping issues. And then we go back and see she has mental health problems. Apparently, I'm not saying it's true. But that's where you come into difficulties, because now the question is, her car is in a place, there's no reason to be. She's out taking pictures. Was it pictures of what? Where was the lizard? I don't think the woodcutter saw the lizard. Did he? I mean, it doesn't mention a bearded dragon. So she's out taking pictures. Where's the bearded dragon? Is in the vehicle, and she's taking pictures of what? I don't know, woods. It's kind of an odd place to put your car, in an isolated dirt track. So the question is, there's three possibilities. One, She went into the woods to disappear permanently, to disappear herself. 2, she became so disoriented, she wandered off and just never could figure, just lost her mind. And 3, she became a victim because she was just kind of not making the best choices, and she ran into somebody who made her, who victimized her. And sometimes people who have mental issues do put themselves in, and we've seen this in quite a few cases where the person is disoriented. And the case I talked about, I forgot her name now, the one in California where she was very disoriented at the restaurant. She ended up in police custody, but they had to release her. Then she went walking away and she ended up dead. And it's always questioned whether she ended up dead because of what condition she was in, because they never could prove, I think, exactly why she was dead. Or did she end up dead because while she was in that disoriented state, she ran into a bad person? And I don't know with Chelsea either. It's just, but her behavior from the time she left to where she was going was off. So clearly to me, she was having some kind of meltdown, some kind of psychotic thing going on. She was not quite right. So it's hard to say what happened to her because of that. But yeah, it does seem like a mental health crisis, Taylor. And she left her vehicle either looking for help or perceiving a threat. I don't know if she was looking for help, but perceiving a threat is interesting because there's a number of people who become very paranoid very quickly. And then they make some really weird choices to get away from somebody they think is trying to hurt them, who isn't trying to hurt them. So they might just bolt through the forest or something. They do strange things, and it's hard when people have mental issues. It's really hard to determine why they're doing what they're doing because they're not in their own right mind. So they're going to make choices that are just wacky, So if the woodcutter did something to her, I don't think he would have admitted to seeing her. Well, yes and no. You always have to be careful of when either he truly is just a nice guy who saw her and wanted to let the police know he saw her, or somebody knows he saw her and therefore he has to admit he saw her. So if somebody sees you with somebody, you have to admit you were with them. So sometimes people will admit to things because otherwise somebody else is going to say something. So it's hard to say which way it goes on that. But he hasn't been arrested or anything. But the weird thing is the dogs came up with nothing. And it was a dirt road. So this is important too. It's a dirt road. And apparently she's parked in the middle of two seemingly dead tires, which makes very, very little sense to me. I'd love to know more about that. So she's basically blocking the road. So somebody could have come up behind her and said, "What's going on? And do you need a lift out of here because your tires are bad?" So that's possible, but they seem to not come up with any proof of that. But it could be possible. But why didn't she take her camera? I think a parent's made a good point on that. First of all, if you're into taking photos and you have a camera, you're not going to leave your camera unattended in the vehicle. Anything that you think is worthwhile, you're going to take with you. Your lizard and your camera. But her camera's there. So she just left with the lizard? Seems a little odd to me. Where's the phone? I couldn't figure that part out. So, that substance abuse is always a mess too, because it, again, messes up your brain. So you never know. But yeah, I don't know. It's a good question as to whether they're going to come up with any real proof of anything. So I want to talk about, where is it? Okay, that's her. This guy. Oh my God, this guy, Justice Moen. And I want to point this out because of the motive thing with Brian Koberger. People jump to motive conclusions because of things the person has said and done, but that's not usually the motive that people are not understanding. So anyway, he beheaded his daddy. He said he was trying to perform a citizen's arrest. Okay. Sorry to laugh on that, but that's not how you do it. Oh my God. Come with me or I'll chop your head off. The Pennsylvania man charged with fatally shooting his and then beheading his father and posted it on YouTube. Said on the stand Wednesday that the killing was plan B after trying to arrest his father, what he called false statements and treason. He was 33 years old. And he killed his father in 2024. So, this one is actually January 2024. So at least only a year and a half later. He had spoke clearly with apparently no emotion. He spoke for 2 hours of no emotion. He said he shot his father in the bathroom of the family Levitt townhome after telling him he was going to arrest him. He said his father, who he said was an experienced martial artist, told him he would kill him before he'd let that happen and reached for his gun. Now, as I always say, never believe whatever the heck these people say, because, and it's funny, sometimes it'll be reported that this is what his father did. We don't know that his father did anything like that. That's what the killer is saying. The killer is making up a story to give him some, reason for why he did something. So he said his dad and his father said he wouldn't do that, and he reached for the gun. So what? The kid had the gun pointed at him, and he reached for the gun. That's what he said. Unfortunately, he resisted. I was hoping to perform a citizen's arrest for ultimately treason. And then he described a list from his notebook shown during the trial that he had the lines boom and slice as his plan B. Boom and slice. That's his plan B. I mean, so if Daddy doesn't go with me willingly to the police station for treason, I'm going to boom and then slice. Okay. And he said he expected his father to go along with the citizen's arrest. Really? Okay. He said he differed politically from his parents, describing them as on the left. He told the court he believed his father wanted to stop him from becoming a politician, similar to President Donald Trump, and that his father gave false statements in an unrelated civil case that he brought in federal court. Pay attention to the father testified against him on another case. And asked why he beheaded his father, he said he wanted to send a message to the federal government workers to meet his demands, which included their resignation, as well as the cancellation of public debt, among other things. He said he didn't do it out of hatred for his father to cause trauma to his family. Oh, no, not at all. His mother cried in court at the end of direct questioning from his attorney. I knew something such as a severed head would not only go viral, but would lessen the violence. Okay. He shot his father with a newly purchased pistol and decapitated him with a kitchen knife and a machete. 14-minute YouTube video. Okay, so then he was arrested later that day, scaling a fence at the National Guard headquarters. He said in court he knew it was wrong to jump the fence. Jumping the fence is wrong, but killing your father and cutting his head off, not so wrong. It's like, what in the heck? He was using a USB device containing photos of federal buildings and apparent instructions for making explosives when he was arrested. So he was planning on blowing up stuff too. He expressed a violent anti-government rhetoric and writings he published online. And then early in the trial, the judge heard from the mother who said police came to the house. She shared with his parents. You know, you got to wonder. This stuff is not unknown to his parents. And you got to say, parents, if you've got a child, that, you know, a grown man living in your house that is clearly off the rocker, you need to get him out of your house. They said it was the prosecutor said it was a cold, calculated, organized plan, which it was. There were rants about the government, blah, blah, blah. So at any rate, all the comments below are all political because they believe that this is what's happening these days. If someone commits a crime who is spewing a lot of political stuff on this side, that side says it's because this side has been supporting people becoming violent. If it's on the other side they're spewing stuff, this side says this side is encouraging violence. This is not a political channel. I just want to point out that there's a lot that people aren't paying attention to. The guy himself, it appears to be psychopathic and like a mass murderer. He wants his moment of power and control and his thrill. He wants to be this important person. It wouldn't matter really what politics he's involved in or what politics his parents are involved in. He would have come up with some reason, some way to do that no matter what. And it's just, so it's not like he's working. This is the same thing we have with the issue of terrorism. When you have a lone person, what they call a lone wolf, who commits a crime that looks terrorist. The question is, if they're not actually working for a terrorist cell, in other words, if they aren't a soldier of that particular terrorism group, where they've been trained by them and sent out, they're not really terrorists. Sometimes people will say, oh, they were online, and so, that terrorist group has managed to, get into their heads and all that stuff. But the point being is that if they're not even connected with any group, they may be looking for an excuse to commit a crime, give themselves some validity, some proper reason for committing the crime. They want to commit the crime anyway. So it's a lone wolf is usually just a lone psychopath. And whatever they decide to glom onto as their excuse for committing the crime is often nothing to do with actually why they committed the crime. I made that a statement over the Fort Hood shooter. The Fort Hood shooter, people thought was a terroristic crime because he was Muslim and he had some contact with somebody somewhere. And they said, oh, that's why he went and killed these people. No, he didn't. He was in midlife crisis. He hated, he didn't get the job he wanted. He had been, I think, demoted even. He was pissed off and jealous of other people and not getting he didn't think he got a fair shake. He went and killed his workmates. But before he went and killed his workmates, he went online and came up with sort of an excuse for why he should go and kill all his workmates. It had nothing to do with, he wasn't a terrorist. He wasn't hooked up with any terrorist group. He's just a mass murderer. And a lot of times people confuse that with actual true terrorism. For example, my son, it was in Jaipur when 9 bicycle bombs blew up in the center of Jaipur in India. That was a group, Lakshya Toiba, coming out of Pakistan that set that up. Now that's terrorism. That's not one guy who just decided to killed some school kids or whatever and blame them and come up with some wacky reason. That's an actual planned terrorist attack, which is political, absolutely political. And this guy, he had politics involved, but only in his own little freaking mind. I'm going to say he didn't like his daddy. So I just think people need to lower the political rhetoric when you're talking about a nut job, So 2 entirely different things. You got your own, we'll talk about politics, someplace else where you can discuss the different issues that are concerning to you. But when it comes down to this guy's just what he is. And the politics mean nothing in this particular case. So I just wish people would not mix the two, even though it looks like it could be that way. It's just not. And thank goodness he's a moron. But that did help because he probably would have gone on to, he probably would have become a spree killer in that sense, because once you commit that kind of crime, you're going down. I mean, there's no way, you put it online, so it's not like people don't know who did it. So now then you become extremely dangerous if you can avoid law enforcement and commit some more crimes. Luckily, he wasn't too bright, so that did help. Plan B should have. Well, there's a concept, but of course he knew darn well. Now some people would say, was he psychotic in the sense that he's not? His ridiculous. His thinking is ridiculous. I think we give too much credit to being psychotic when a lot of people are just stupid, and want to create their own vision of things. So I think that's more likely. But can it be? You can be psychopathic and psychotic at the same time. So I think Plan B was his only plan. I think you're right, Tassels. I think that was probably just it. I wanted to mention this, which is kind of just interesting because I'm a very anti-drug person, and I'm so tired of people who are. We have so many people dying, overdosing on fentanyl in Maryland. We have a huge problem with that, and everywhere else in the United States. But I know so many people are overdosing in this area. It's ridiculous. My sons actually all 3 of my kids, they know people who've died of drug overdoses, and I'm thinking when I grew up, I never heard of such a thing. When I was a young person, I didn't have any friends who died of drug overdoses. I knew some people smoked weed, but that was about it. Nobody was dying. But now we have all these people dying, and they're actually going so and so and so and so and so and so. Oh my God, they're not close friends, but they people that have been in their circle, and they're like, They like every time they get they're like, God, so and so's dead now from drug overdose, and it's horrifying. So the problem we have, which people keep trying to say, is drugs are a victimless crime. That was a big thing put out there, which is nonsense. And once upon a time, where people were selling homegrown weed, okay, I'll give it a little, you know what I mean? They sold a little homegrown, and somebody smoked some homegrown. Nobody was dying. But when you're giving out lethal illegal drugs to people and they're dying, some people will say, well, if that person takes the drug, tough crap. It's their choice as an adult. They took a drug that they shouldn't have been taking. Well, I have to agree with that. It's true. If you're going to take drugs, that's kind of on you. But on the other hand, if a person is giving drugs to another person that are lethal, they should go down too. That's my opinion. So they just got this girl, Whitney Purvis. I don't know how many people know her. I was not familiar with her, but apparently she was on, what was she on? Hold on a second, let me find it. Whitney, where are you, Whitney? Okay, hold on. Where did she go? Oh, here she is. Okay, 16 and pregnant was her claim to fame. So apparently she's wasn't too smart back then. 16 and pregnant star Whitney Purvis arrested for involuntary manslaughter and overdose death. And she looks a lot prettier on the right than she does on the left. And I'm going to say on the right, those are filters like you wouldn't believe. Anyway, Whitney Purvis, who appeared in the first season for MTV's 16 and Pregnant, which by the way, I think should be illegal, because I don't think children under the age of 18 should be used on talk shows or in documentaries or in all this stuff, that reality TV crap. I think that's child abuse. Anyway, she appeared in the first season of MTV's 16 and Pregnant back in 2009. She was arrested in Georgia today on a charge of involuntary manslaughter in connection to a fatal overdose. Purvis, 33, is being held without bond. According to the document, she's accused of distributing the combination of fentanyl and xylazine, known as Trank, that led to the overdose death in February of an adult man named John Mark Harris. The arrest comes just a month after her teenage son, Weston Jr., whom Purvis was carrying during the 2009 episode, died of natural causes. He was living with his father at the time of his death. Interesting. I don't know what natural causes those were. After Weston's death, she said that he lacked proper medical care despite suffering from diabetes, Addison's disease, and said the father denied the claims. Anyway, so then she said she recently lost her grandmother. Losing both of you within 6 months of each other feels like torture. When my Meemaw passed, life was just like something was always missing. She raised me, so it was like losing my mom. I eventually found peace with it. In a sense, she isn't suffering anymore. I have two more sons that still need me. As much as I feel life has no purpose now, I have to find the courage to get out of bed and face another day and deal drugs that kill people. So she's up for involuntary manslaughter, and I have no problem with it. And I think it needs to happen more often. And it happened also in Maryland, although he should have gotten involuntary manslaughter. He did not get involuntary manslaughter, but he did get convicted of, I'll tell you what he got convicted of. That would be, wait. So this is our area, my area. Here we go. St. Mary's jury finds man guilty in overdose death. So what did he sick on somebody? He distributed fentanyl. It's all this fentanyl crap. And distribution of counterfeit narcotic following a deadly overdose. Let's see what happened here. The law enforcement responded to a call of an unresponsive woman. They found her deceased. A toxicology report later confirmed fentanyl in her blood, and the medical examiner determined the cause of death as fentanyl intoxication. At the scene, investigators recovered a cut straw and pills resembling oxycodone, both of which tested positive for fentanyl. Investigators uncovered electronic payments and communications between the victim and Jones, indicating a narcotics transaction on the night of the overdose. These findings established Jones as a source of the fentanyl that led to the victim's death. The prosecution highlighted the deceptive nature of the drugs, which were presented as oxycodone, but contained the lethal substance fentanyl. As they pointed out, fentanyl is killing people in our community. In this case, is another heartbreaking reminder. These deadly pills sold on the street are not prescribed by a doctor or by they are counterfeit drugs, fakes that may look like prescription medications such as oxycodone, but are laced with the deadly drug fentanyl. What did he get? He faces up to 40 years in prison. I hope he gets 40 years, but they got him for distribution, but not for manslaughter. Or murder, in my opinion, if you put fentanyl in something and you say it's oxy and that person dies, you should go down for murder, in my opinion. I think they're still way too light on all these things. I think they got to start going after these people heavy, because the U.S. is drowning in drug deaths. And the cartels are moving into this country all over the place because they've got so many consumers now. And the U.S. is at fault for having all these consumers. So one of the reasons that Mexico is screwed is because, and Colombia and all these places, is because their number one purchasers of all their drugs are U.S. citizens. So we are highly responsible for the drugs that cross our borders that are killing people and are making the lives of the people in those countries freaking miserable as well, because you don't want cartels to have the power they have, because they do horrific damage. And now the cartels are here, and they've moved in, and so I think we need to start going after every level of drug stuff. But that's just me, because I hate seeing all these people die. I've just never seen so many people die that are in their 20s and 30s from overdosing. I mean, these aren't people who are on the street. We all see the people on the street that look like, the zombies on the street, the homeless zombies. But I'm talking about people who actually have jobs, actually have families, actually are living in a house, and then they end up dead from overdosing, which is just unbelievable. I mean, that shouldn't be happening. So, yeah, I think so. I think there's a horrible exploitation of teens in reality shows. It's sickening. Yeah, it's sickening. I'm just not fond of reality shows. I won't watch any of them. Yeah. So, yeah, that's I'm glad they got at least 2 people for it, and I think they need to be doing more of that. They do. Somebody asked me about what's happening up in Boston, and it's an interesting question because of the Karen Reed trial. I want to mention this case and see where we end. See what time it is. This one. What was the question? The question was. Let's see if I can find it. Okay. A person who's not here today, actually couldn't make it, but was talking about the ongoing Karen Reed case and the impact of the officers that were involved in the case, who were less than stellar, like Michael Proctor, kind of a scumbag. Anyway, so they got these people who were, Michael Proctor was dishonorably discharged. Michael Proctor had nothing to do with the evidence in the case being wrong. He shouldn't have said some of the things he said. Let's put it that way. And there's a bunch of other people who've been reassigned and temporary duty assignments. People have been moved around because there's so much bad publicity. But also, she's talking about the Sandra Birchmore case that was also, but in other words, some police officers weren't the best, shall we say. And she was asking, I'm curious to know what you think the repercussions will be for cases still pending in court involving these officers who were less than stellar, shall we say. All right. We often have this problem. We have a problem with, let's say you have a lab, and you find out that one of the lab people has been kind of cheating on the determinations on DNA or whatever else. That affects every case that that person ever worked, because the defense attorneys are going to roll in really quick and say, this person is a disreputable human being, and you can't trust that person. Therefore, they might have messed up all these other cases, including this one with my client. So yes, it causes a huge, massive mess in the system. And that there's always repercussions when you've got one bad apple or a few bad apples in any system, because then there's a distrust of the entire system. So I don't know what's going on up in the Boston way, but I don't know where they're getting their police officers from and what their rules are. And of course, it is getting more and more difficult to get police officers these days because of the very negative attitude by the citizenry. A lot of people are like, yeah, I'm not joining anymore. So now you have to lower your standards to get anybody, and then you get worse people. So that's problematic. So I'm going to bring up this one other person that this case. This is Kelsey Fitzsimmons. She was just sworn in. She was sworn in May of 2024 to the North Andover Police. I guess whatever they are, North Andover. Now let me find the article on that because it's bizarre as heck. Hold on, let me find it. Here we go. All right. She was shot by a fellow officer. But look at the circumstances. Fitzsimmons, 28, has been with the North Andover Police Department since last spring. She's very new. She was on administrative leave at the time of the shooting, which is interesting because why is she on administrative leave, right? All right, so she survived and is in stable condition. 3 charges were filed against Fitzsimmons in Lawrence District Court in the wake of the shooting. She faces 1 charge of assault to murder and 2 charges of assault with a deadly weapon, according to the court documents. What happened? Officials have released little information about the specific events, but the district attorney says that one of the on-duty officers was escorting Fitzsimmons during the interaction when an armed conflict broke out. She had been previously involuntarily committed to Lowell General Hospital to be treated for postpartum depression. She surrendered her department-issued firearm and at least 1 privately owned weapon at that time, but it's unclear if her weapons were returned to her before the shooting. Well, she seemed to, it's really unclear, but it seemed that there was a shooting thing going on. In a lengthy statement released by her attorney, he said that they plan to fight the charges. Kelsey is a new mother who was manifesting symptoms of postpartum depression at the time of the incident. She needed help. She needed compassion. She needed not to be a police officer is what I'm going to say. I'm sorry, but if you have postpartum depression, you need to remove yourself from duty. You just absolutely do. You cannot be a police officer if you have mental issues. And I don't care if it's postpartum depression or any other freaking thing you're going through. You should not be out there. And so you have to either take a long leave of absence or whatever. Instead, she was shot, and she's now being smeared in the press in order to deflect attention from the botched response. Okay, now what were they actually going? Why were they even arresting her or taking her someplace? What happened? All right, so here's what happened. By the way, the attorneys plan to address the fallacy that the instant a gun appears, the correct response from a police officer is to fire first. Oh, so a gun did appear? Are you saying a gun appeared? She drew a gun on them? Well, if somebody draws a gun on you, you do fire. I mean, what do you do? Say, oh, I see you have a gun. Don't use it. I mean, what the heck? So anyway, it also said the notion of an officer-created jeopardy. An officer-created jeopardy is a situation in which the officer creates a dangerous circumstance, which is then met with deadly force. Okay. He noted that this officer-created jeopardy could be the result of inadequate training and said that he will look at obtaining training records. We demand full transparency. We will call out every contradiction and expose every lie. They were serving her. They were serving her restraining order. That's all they were doing. Now, she's a police officer. She knows exactly what happens. They serve you a restraining order and you go, thank you very much. And that's the end of it. What happened when they did that? Apparently, she took some kind of action that was not okay. The reason she got the restraining order, Kelsey is threatening to take the baby far, far away. This is from the father. For a long time. This is how she has spoken about killing herself in the past. I fear that she will kill the baby at any moment. That's the fiance. She punched her stomach repeatedly while pregnant, saying she would kill herself and the baby. He detailed how she allegedly struck him with a closed fist while they were in Maine earlier this summer, causing him to leave to stay in a hotel and prompting friends to contact authorities. In the affidavit, the fiance noted that she's a police officer with license to carry and expressed concerns regarding her reaction to being served with a restraining order. So Wow. Um, she seems to have severe mental problems. And I wouldn't say necessarily they're postpartum depression mental problems. She seems to have mental problems because she's whacking her. Now, I don't know if the fiance is telling the truth, but if she's punching her stomach while she's pregnant, that's not postpartum depression, is it? That's something else. And the fact that she would appears that she drew a weapon on her fellow officers, which caused them to shoot her, tells me she's got way more problems than whatever. So you look at that particular instance and you say, what did somebody miss as far as her being on the police force? And that once she already had been off at the police force, she was back. I mean, it's concerning. And so whenever you have a police force that needs quite a few people, even though manpower is way down, and that's why response time is down, and a lot of cases don't even get investigated because they just don't have the manpower anymore. Still, you got to get people to work for the police, and so theoretically, if working for the police is a good thing, in other words, you're proud to be a police officer like my daughter was when she joined, then you might be you're always going to have your life is always going to be at risk from the bad guys, right? But you want the community to support you. And if now you're having trouble with getting any kind of community support, you get more bad police officers and more deranged police officers like her, apparently. And so then you get a mess. And yes, the whole Boston thing. I personally think, again, a professional jury system. If I were on the professional jury, I would have found Karen Reed guilty, regardless of the fact that a few of the officers might have been crappy, and maybe weren't the best, or just had because you get a lot of times when you have a case, depending on circumstances, who's ever available, whatever. This was a blizzard situation, training issues, just whatever. You're not going to always get a perfect, perfect. Everything was done like stellar. You might get some errors. Errors don't necessarily mean corruption. Errors don't mean that the person's not guilty if enough of the evidence is still obvious. But it doesn't make the police force look good. Let's put it that way. When you have some really scummy people on the police force, which you can have in every profession, you get raping doctors, you get anesthesiologists who are serial killers, you get nurse serial killers who kill babies, and every profession, teachers who have sex with their students. You can't get away from that in any profession. But the more difficult it is to get people in your profession. Like a lot of teachers are retiring now because of the violence in the schools, and they're not able to teach properly. So they don't want to do it anymore. So then who do you hire? Your standards go like this. So I think we're going to see in the future, because of the lack of people joining the police force, it's going to be tricky to get decent people on there. So yeah, but it does have a horrible effect. There's no question about it. And it may affect any of the cases they ever worked on. Absolutely. So that's the answer to that. I don't know. That's a good question, because it's obviously, I would disbelieve they maybe say you could just say, oh, the fiance is just trying to mess with her. But the simple fact is, it doesn't seem like that. So there's evidence that shows she had issues before this happened, and she obviously, it appears she pulled a weapon on just because she was being served anybody knows it's the same thing as a traffic stop. You get stopped by the cop on the road. You don't cause trouble. You keep your hands on the wheel. You carefully get your ID out. You hand it to him. You don't argue, because that he does have a weapon, and you hopefully do not. And then, if anything goes wrong and you don't like what happens, you take it to court. She's a police officer. She knows if they're going to hand me that restraining order, I get the restraining order. That's it. What else is, nobody's going to do anything about it. You just get it and you go inside your house and close the door. She didn't. And she got shot. I don't think she's going to be in the police force anymore. I would assume that's the end of her police career. But now the lawyers are trying to say the other police officers at fault. And I think that's probably garbage. But why was she on the police force when she was having mental issues? I don't even know. And thank God nobody outside No, none of the citizens got harmed. Very, very, very weird, very weird case. Very weird. Let's see. Let's see if I have anything else here before I close up. This is just kind of funny. Body discovered in blanket with donated items at Pasadena Goodwill store. Well, you don't need the body. You don't need that person anymore. You just, you just donate them to Goodwill. I just thought that was kind of amusing. It's terrible. It's terrible. Oh, I did want to do this case. 40 years ago, Teresa Peroni disappeared and her boyfriend was charged with her murder. He's now 72 years old, and this is what he looked like at the time. And it's an interesting case because does it look like he could have done it? Sure. Is there evidence he did it? And that's where it gets a little bit questionable. Let's see. Oh, hi, Cat. Cat has finally arrived. I got my food. Hello, Kitty. How are you doing? Yeah, hi. Oh, now you're going to run away. I'm not bothering you. No, don't run away. Okay, come back later for treats. All right. Just looked at him and he ran away. All right, where is it? Okay. Let's see. Where'd it go? Oh, here we go. A California man's girlfriend disappeared in 1983, and they just charged him with her murder. Now, what did they have to charge him with her murder? They indicted San Fratello on the charge of murder. Authorities found him in Chico, California, and took him into custody. All right. Police have not said why they believe he is the killer. Also, it's unclear how he spent the last 40 years. Okay. Now, the whole story is he was at a party with her, and apparently they had some kind of fight, and then they went out into the woods, and he came back. She didn't. And they didn't find him. Let's see. Okay, wait a minute. Let me see if I can find the other. I want to read this in a minute, but I want to hold off on this a second because I think his history is interesting. When people say, why would they even look at this guy? I mean, just because when he was a teenager, he was at a party and she didn't disappear. What does that mean? Where'd it go? Shoot. Okay. Now I'm not going to find it. Okay. I do remember it though. So I'm going to just tell you what I remember. So apparently they found her skull. They found a skull nearby somewhere and none of her other body parts, but they found the skull and they didn't know anything who it was. And they just did DNA on it and they found out it was indeed this girl's skull. So they know that she died in that area somehow, but they don't have any proof of how she died because I don't hear anything about a gunshot wound to the head or anything. And he was the last person seen with her. So that's why they're, he went out with her and, they went into the woods. He came back. She didn't. Okay. Theoretically, they could have argued and then they could have just split up and she went her way and he went his. Theoretically. So is there a reason to think this guy could have done something like that? Well, let's look about what happened after this happened. He's had other bouts with the law. In 1985, San Fratello was charged with 2 counts of attempted murder, 1 count of rape, and 1 count of burglary and the stabbing of his ex-wife and her 14-year-old daughter in their California home. He was sentenced to more than 15 years in prison for 2 counts of attempted murder. Years later, in 1999, he was convicted in a count of theft or embezzlement. He was sentenced to 2 years of probation. Why do you get probation after you've already been in prison? I don't get. Let's see, how long did he stay in prison? Oh, he spent 15 years in prison. And then he had to pay $4,000 restitution. So is he capable of murder? I'm going to say yes. But I'm curious, how are they going to prove it? I mean, that's when I mean, circumstantially, a laundry list of charges. Yeah. Mac will learn the T word before treats. Yes, I'm working on that. Because it was years ago, they don't have a cause of death and they can't prove. Strange noise. You can't prove that he did it. Just the last person seen with is often the person who did it. But I don't know in a court of law if that's evidence, even if he's an obvious creepo after the fact. I'm curious to see I will try to keep an eye on this and see if they have any evidence, like real evidence linking him outside of the fact he was the last person with her, linking him to the crime, and whether that will work in a court of law. Because I would think a defense attorney will go to town on that, because if that's all they've got, I mean, again, you can believe a person did it, but there would be reasonable doubt if you've got no evidence to actually prove they did it outside of they took a walk with them. So we'll have to see. Yeah, but all those years later, it's funny sometimes when they come and get somebody, the one I talked about last week in the UK, I mean, they had good reason. They had him dead to rights. And, he's what was he, 89 or whatever the heck he was, is like, he's going to get life in prison, like 2 days later. Yeah. So he got a free ride all those years, but it's an interesting one. I'll be curious to see what they eventually come up with on that for proof, because again, there needs to be proof. I'll mention one more thing, and then I'll stop for tonight. This is just a sad thing. This is a young boy, a young teenage boy, and he was writing what was he writing? This is just something I look at how people respond to when their child fortunately died. And he seemed like a nice enough kid, according to everybody. All he wanted to do was ride. Friends remember, and this is his family and some relatives. And this is from Minnesota, where I spent 4 years. Kevin Reitmeyer, I think is his name, was barely 14 years old when he left this world doing what he loved most. He and his 4 friends woke up from a sleepover and decided to take his moped out for a ride. The boys took turns, with Kevin steering each one around the neighborhood in wide looping spins. He dropped one off and then pick up the next one, but on his 4th ride that morning, he didn't make it back. Speeding through a St. Paul intersection, he missed a stop sign and was struck by a pickup truck. A 13-year-old friend riding with him was critically injured. Kevin was pronounced dead at the hospital. And here's an interesting thing that, they did seem like a cool kid. Everybody said he was a real fun kid, really nice to everybody, nice to his brothers, sisters, whatever. Seemed like a nice kid. And it said here, this is the thing that I find frustrating when people do this. And look at all the vehicles. She pointed to the stop sign. Look at all the vehicles that don't stop. If you've got a 14-year-old kid on a scooter and the adults in the big cars are not stopping, the kids are not going to stop. She wants a stoplight at the intersection. All right. What do you see as an issue here? Which to me is just an obvious issue. Thank you. There we go. How sad. There are tons of teen bikers in Philly riding illegal vehicles all over all night long. Yeah, not those damn mopeds. Yes, we have a problem of teenagers who shouldn't be. First of all, they're not following the rules of the road. If you're doing loopity things, you're not following the rules of the road. If you're on the road, you're supposed to follow the rules and be following the safe rules. It's not a place for joyriding. It's not a place for fancy tricks. It's not any of that. You can go to locations. You can go to trails in the woods. You can go to parking lots. There are places you can do all that crap. But on the street, you cannot. So he sped through a stop sign and got hit. And that's it. Okay, that's a good point. We have kids driving through intersection and red lights all the time. So she wants a stoplight put in there. That probably wouldn't have stopped him either. And let's see, scooters are not following, and they should have passed exams to drive and get tickets for reckless driving. Yeah, and on top of that, no helmets. And so when you come right down to it, it's a kid acting maybe like a kid would act, but without proper supervision and without proper, just simply, you don't ride that thing in the street. You just don't. End of discussion. And so it's actually a parental fault. It's not the fault of that poor truck driver who hit him. And there's no mention of that poor truck driver, because that person has to live the rest of their life with the death of that child in front of them. And also that other child is supposedly critical. So then nobody even mentions the other child. I don't know what happened to the other child. who's in critical. And so those parents, where are they? And, concerned about the fact that their child got on the back of this bike, which was being actually basically driven illegally by a kid. But I feel sorry for the truck driver. It scares the hell out of me sometimes when I'm riding down the road and I see bicycles, black bicycle with a black, and I'm in a very African American area, so you'll find now there's proper bicyclists who are in this area, who have bicycle clubs, and you see them in their fluorescent outfit, and they got their flashing lights on the back, and they got their helmet on, and every time I see them, I'm like, thumbs up. And then my granddaughter who's with me goes, thumbs up, because I keep talking about that. But sometimes I've been driving down the road at night, and you get some guy, not on a fancy bike, probably a guy who's not doing so well in life, shall we say, and he's on this black bicycle, and he's a black guy wearing a black outfit. I can't see him, and I'm so afraid I'm going to hit one of these guys one of these days. And the other day I saw a guy who was clearly trashed out of his mind on some kind of drugs or whatever, and just walking in and out of a road that was 50, 60 miles an hour. And we have, on that particular road, we have a lot of pedestrian deaths because of these people aren't in good shape that are walking into the roads. But the person that hits them, first of all, they have to deal with law enforcement as to whether they hit them wrongly because they couldn't see them. Were they distracted, or was it, why did they hit them? Okay, you have to prove things. That's hard. That's terrifying. And secondly, even if you're totally in the right, you have to live with that for the rest of your life. So I really feel sorry for the truck driver as well. And nobody talks about that poor guy. Yeah, well, that's a good point. That's why I avoid driving on certain streets here at night. Yeah, I mean, it's all over. I mean, wherever you're at. But it's just, it's frustrating. Because you have to, if you're going to be on the road, obviously you should have respect for being on the road and understand that the lesser of a vehicle you have, the more of a danger you might get of getting crushed. I drive Mazda Miata. I hit a deer, the deer wins. It's not a good thing, but you have to be very cautious when, especially bicyclists and pedestrians who seem to think, well, we have the right, so we'll just do whatever we want to, and then you get hit, and it's not a good thing. And I think we need to have much more understanding that, hey, you may have the right of way sometimes, but if somebody doesn't see you because you're dressed improperly, you're coming across a crosswalk, but you think it's okay to run across the crosswalk, you had the right of way because you were in a crosswalk, but the person didn't have a chance to see you before they whacked you, and then you're in trouble because, oh, you hit a pedestrian in a crosswalk. Well, yeah, but I didn't see him fly out, So they're looking at their phone and not even looking to see if cars are going to hit them. I don't understand that. It's like, if I cross the street, I'm looking to make sure everybody sees me, especially if it's one of those where you're crossing and somebody might turn the corner. I check, make sure those cars aren't moving, because I use brains and say, hey, even if I have the right of way, I might, somebody else might not pay attention to that, and I don't want to get hit. So, you can be right, but you can get up dead, or you can be foolish and act in such a way that you're gonna get hit by somebody because you didn't wear the right clothes, because you pulled out when you shouldn't have pulled out, because you crossed where you shouldn't have crossed. One time I had a guy walk in front of my car and I slammed on the brakes and he yelled at me and he said, "I'm in the crosswalk." But he wasn't in the crosswalk. There was no crosswalk there. So I'm like, what are you on that you see stripes in the road, So it's just so frustrating. Law enforcement does nothing about these kids pulling right in front of vehicles. Well, the problem is law enforcement has stopped doing a lot of stuff because they're getting yelled at for everything now. So they're like almost saying we're hands off, because every time we try to do something, parents come out and scream at us and yell at us and call us names. I know a lot of police officers are kind of like doing their time, but not doing as much as they used to, because they don't want to get involved. They don't want to stop a person, for a small infraction anymore. They're like, didn't see it. And that's because of the way citizenry has been behaving toward police officers. So it's really messed things up, So yeah, that dash cam is probably a really good idea, Cauliflower. Actually, not a bad idea at all, because you almost have to protect yourself from whatever, because if you don't have proof, you don't have proof. It's unfortunate. Yeah, that's a good point. They have too much to handle here as well. Yeah, and they say they're way down on personnel. So my daughter's been like working a crap load of overtime recently because they just don't have the people to cover. And she's doing, she's a detective, but she's doing some street work and stuff because they don't have people. So yeah. But anyway, okay, that's it for tonight. I'm gonna lay off now. So thank you for being here for the Hangout. If you're new again, do like and subscribe and join Patreon below. And I'll be back on Sunday with whatever case I decide on, which I have not yet decided on. So you still have time to harass me some more about a case that you thought I was going to do, but I didn't get to. And say there's just so many, and but I've got a few more days to. What are we on Thursday? So Friday and Saturday. Hopefully I'll decide by the end of tomorrow. So anyway, thank you, Rainey. I'm glad you were here. Glad you were here, Lane. Just take care, everybody. Don't drive mopeds in the street and do wheelies and crap. Please don't do that. I don't think most of the crowd here is into doing that. Cauliflower says, I probably missed next week. I was going on vacation. Where are you going so I can be jealous? Would you tell me? I want to know. Bye, Caitlin. Yeah, I'm going to go do my son and I, this one, we're planning to do he wants to go leaf peeping in New Hampshire and Vermont. So we're going to take a road trip, and we're going to go to there, and we're going to look at the beautiful leaves, and then we're going to go to Boston to see a baseball game at least, and drop by New York City for something, and then head home. So we're going to do a road trip together. So that's going to be fun. So yeah, it's nowhere exotic. Well, you're going to Detroit for vacation. I mean, on vacation at least to family and having a nice time with them. Drooling now, thinking about fall. I like fall, but I just don't like the season that comes after fall. That's where my problem comes in. It's like, no, then it's going to be winter. You know how much I hate winter. So yeah, I just don't want to see winter. Oh, did you? Oh, was it gorgeous in Vermont? Yeah, that's why we both. I've been to Vermont and New Hampshire, but I don't think I was ever there in the autumn. And so we've done 2 road trips together before. So this will be our 3rd road trip together. Well, no, we've done 4 because we did one. We did India, we did Florida from Miami to the Keys, and then we did the West Coast. We did Napa, Oregon, and Washington. And in India, we went all over, all the way up to Kashmir and all that. So this will be our 4th road trip together. Yeah. So now the Catskills in New York. Oh yeah. Well, maybe we'll be rolling through there too. Yeah. Yeah. I every year here, I know at least if I go to like the Blue Ridge Mountains, is much prettier, but I've never really done the whole northern route for autumn, which sounds really cool to me. So we're going to have fun. I think it's going to be a nice trip. We get along, generally speaking, pretty well on the road, and both of us have come back home after the trip. So that's a good sign. But if I don't come home from leaf peeping, he did it. I was like, hopefully that will never happen. Oh, apple cider donuts. We do have a good apple cider donut place in Front Royal, Virginia, the Apple House. If you're in that area, Apple House, spot on, great, delicious. So yeah, I do like them. So I probably will try to get one of those. Okay, everybody, good night. See you later. Bye.